Welcome everybody to today's Ask Me Anything. We're glad that you're in attendance and we hope you find this AMA beneficial. My name is Brandon Peterson. I'm an account manager with ApplicantStack, and I'm joined by Carol, my colleague, who's also an account manager, Ellen, who is one of our regulars. She's excused today. She's taking some well-deserved time off. So we'll go ahead and give it a couple more minutes if we have any stragglers that want to join us. So we'll take a pause of about 2 minutes and let those people join us. And then we'll go ahead and get started with our quick presentation, after which we'll have a Q&A. You can enter your questions in the questions section of the GoToWebinar interface, and we will address those questions in the order that they come in. As we wait, we'll also point your attention to a couple announcements that we have. The first is on October 24th, we'll be having our ApplicantStack Recruit webinar. So that can be very helpful for those who are investigating ApplicantStack or new users of ApplicantStack. That can be quite helpful to get a refresher on how to use the system. And secondly, on November 14th, we'll have another ApplicantStack onboarding webinar. And so if you are using Recruit but not yet utilizing onboarding, that can be also a very helpful presentation to learn how to utilize the onboarding features of ApplicantStack. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. So the topic that I wanted to cover today is about forms. We want to talk about forms and how to update the forms in our existing onboarding library. So if you're not already using onboarding, this might be helpful to see how onboarding works. You'll get a little bit of a peek into that. But if you're already familiar with onboarding, oftentimes we need to update our forms, either because of compliance reasons or perhaps an ownership change or new branding that's been pushed out. And all of those things might precipitate a cause for us to update our forms. And so we wanted to show you quickly how to do that. So because this is an onboarding feature, naturally I'll navigate to the onboarding section of ApplicantStack. Right now I'm in my recruit side. I'm going to click on the 9 square or waffle icon and toggle over to onboarding. Now, once in onboarding, we'll navigate to the library, which is the foundation of onboarding. This is where we need to set up all the basic forms and tasks. Now, a very apropos example is the I-9. This year, the federal government released a new I-9 form. It's simplified and it's consolidated a little bit. And so we might need to replace an existing form from 2022 with the 2023 version. So in order to save you all time, ApplicantStack maintains a library of federal forms, some state forms, and other forms that you can use. So in your library, you'll see an import form option. That's over here on the right under the action menu. So I can click on import form. And then from the library, I'll click the drop down. Now, because I have different privileges, you'll see several different accounts here, but those top three, the state forms, onboarding templates, and federal forms, you should have access to all three of those. And so to import the new I-9 into your account, you would go down here and select federal forms. And then you'll see the options of the forms that you can import. So here I would just click on USCIS form I-9 employment verification eligibility and import that form. Now it might take a second, so we'll just wait for that. All right, so now we will see the new form right here, okay? And we'll see that the date it was imported is here. So what do we do with the old form? Well, to eliminate the old form and to not cause confusion, we want to clean up this form library. So we'll take the old one. Now I know that this one says 2023. It's just an example. We're going to pretend this is an old one. So I'll select that, and on the right action menu, I will click Archive. So now it's gone from the main list here. If I want to access my archived forms, I can click on the status and toggle over to the archived forms and toggle back to the active forms. Okay, but our job isn't done yet. So we've moved a very important form from our list and updated it with a new one. Well, we need to point ApplicantStack in the right direction to use the new form. And so we would do that by updating our checklist. So now I'll go to the checklist and I'll click on the edit shortcut. And because we archived the old form, there's no I-9 here. So I want to make sure I go over here and find the new I-9, and I can click and drag it over to my active checklist. And these are just click and draggable. I can reorder them if I'd like. And so that's how that's done. Now, as long as your checklist is already attached to a workflow stage, there's nothing left that we need to do. That completes it. And the next new hire will be assigned the new updated I-9. Now, what if we have already assigned a checklist to a new hire, but they haven't started their paperwork yet? Well, that is not automatically going to push the new form to them. It would only push the new form to them if they were assigned the checklist after that new form was added to the checklist. So in order to fix that, we might need to go into our hires and click on the candidate. And then we would just manually assign that form to them. And we would do that by coming into the candidate record, add form, and I can select the new form manually from here. Okay, it's going to ask me if I want to notify the candidate. Most of the time I do. It's also going to ask me if I want to put in some kind of reminder cadence into that form. So if they haven't completed it by 24 hours, do we send another email? If we haven't completed it by 48 hours, do we send a second email? So I submit that. And now we'll see that that task is now assigned to the new hire. All right, so now there's some other instances where we might want to update a form. So federal forms, those come out, great. But what if it's a very personalized form, something that we've created and we need to update it? Well, that can be done within ApplicantStack to a degree. So let's cover that. So I'm going to go back to the library. And let's say I want to update my New York wage theft prevention form. Okay, so I'll edit this form. Now there's some questions on here, and you can see that this is referencing a business. And if I wanted to change that business name, maybe there's a merger or a purchase of a business, we can see that it's part of the form itself. It's part of the image of the form. So that's not something that I can update. We would have to update that outside of ApplicantStack, save the PDF, and then upload that form into ApplicantStack and reformat it. But there are some features within ApplicantStack that we can use to save us from having to do that down the road. So one example would be maybe using single line text. So if I were to put a single line text in here and I edit it, I could call this business name. And I would make it a label, and I would give it the business name. Okay, so that is going to be a static field layered on top of the form. But if our business name changes, I can change it later. So that is very helpful and prevents me from having to come out of ApplicantStack, reformat a new PDF, and then upload it. It saves me a lot of time. Now, a second way of doing that is by using merge codes. So if I were to go here and just do single line text, I can use a merge code. to insert the name of the company. So down here, there's a merge code for organization name. And so that would insert that name. So if in my settings, I change the name of my corporation, then it would update that name. Or maybe another example might be the address. If we moved offices and I change that in my settings, then the account address, as you see here, would update on all my forms. So that can be helpful as well. Now, lastly, sometimes we get the question, well, what about a logo change? What if it's a logo? Well, again, if it's a logo and it's part of the PDF image, then that's not something that we can update with an ApplicantStack. That would be something you'd have to find the original document. Maybe it's a Word document, change that, swap out that logo, and then export it as a PDF and import it into ApplicantStack and reformat it. So a lot to digest there. I hope that information is helpful. Certainly the new I-9 is at least is something that you can utilize. We've already done the work for you, so I hope none of you are thinking, shoot, I just did all that work myself last week, and now you know you can import it. So if any of you need to update that form within your onboarding library, you don't need to duplicate that effort. We've already done it for you, and you can import it directly into your account. All right, well, thank you so much. That concludes my part of the presentation. And now we'll move on to our questions. And Carol's gonna help go through those questions and triage those questions, and I'll help answer them. So the time is now yours. I'll look forward to your first questions.
Yeah, we had some questions that were submitted ahead of time, so thank you for those. And we have one that just came in. I'll handle that one first. Do we have to do any revisions on the form that we just updated? I'm wondering if that was uploaded to the system. We may need some clarification on that, but if it's a form you just updated into the system, I-9 form. Do they have to do any revisions to the I-9 form? Brandon?
Yeah, I'm not quite clear on what their form looks like. If this is something, if they downloaded the I-9 form from the federal government's website and imported it and added the fields and all that, then like I said, that's some work that doesn't need to be duplicated. If you've already done it, then that's fine. But you don't need to do that yourselves. If you haven't done it yet, you can just import the completed form and formatted form from the federal forms library that we have. Yeah.
Yep, if it's a standard form, those updates should have already happened. So you can import that. You will need to update your checklists if you have assigned that to a checklist to make sure that the correct one is going out.
Okay, great. Looks like we answered it. Thank you, Sandra.
Okay, next question. Some are on the recruit side, some are on the onboard side. Since we're already on onboard, let's focus there. Why is there no hired stage in the onboard module?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's one that I come across. It's not a rare question. So the short answer is it's just semantics. The name of the stage is whatever you want to name it. Now, by default, it is true that the final stage in Recruit is called the hired stage. And so I think the question is, well, if we still need to onboard somebody, how can we technically call them hired? Well, again, it's just a matter of semantics. It's what you want to call that. I think for the purposes of ApplicantStack, when it was designed and when that default workflow was designed, they were thinking that hired means that there's been a job offered. But many of us operate in a different under a different understanding that they're not truly hired until they've started their first shift or until they've shown up to orientation. And so that's okay. I would share the same definition of what I would call hired, because I wouldn't want to consider someone that never showed up to orientation. I wouldn't want to consider that turnover, right? So don't let the name of the stage be a hang up so much as what the purpose of that stage is. So if you're already using onboarding, the hired stage is essentially, you could think of it as the push to onboarding stage. If you wanted to create a stage within onboarding called hired, you are free to do that. That's totally within the options and configuration that you can do within ApplicantStack. But if you did that, you might want to consider changing the name of the hired stage in Recruit so that it doesn't cause confusion.
Right. Thank you, Brandon. Follow-up question to that. Please define new when using an onboard module versus paperwork. It sounds like a very related question. So when they are from Recruit, they will hit the onboard system as new. From there, once you've assigned the paperwork, that could be paperwork in progress, might be your stage, but again, that's very flexible. You can change that around to meet your process. Brandon is navigating us there right now.
Yeah, exactly. So the new stage, again, you can call these anything you want. By default, the first stage is called the new stage, and it's designed to be like a holding stage where no automation's taking place there. Some accounts will completely delete the new stage, which is okay, and paperwork will be their first stage in onboarding, so that when they move them from the hired stage in Recruit, push them to onboarding, that the email inviting them to complete the paperwork is automatically done. There's nothing else that needs to be done in between. Some accounts choose not to do it that way because they want to control the timing of when that email goes out a little bit closer. And so it's completely up to you. Okay.
Thank you much. Next question. Please define the difference between form and task and why task is sometimes used when only a form needs to be completed, which does not require any action or documentation outside of ApplicantStack.
Okay, so if I go to my onboarding library, we'll see that the question is pertaining to two different types of library items. There's forms. These, you can think of the forms as the PDFs that we know and love and fill out the fields. And then there's tasks, and tasks can be, there's three different types of tasks, and they include a file, so like a file upload, the task or assignment, the to-do item, if you want to give it a different name, would be to upload a file. Another type of task would be general, so just a general to-do item. That might include something that you need to do internally, like order a uniform or print the name tag or something like that. And then lastly, there's questionnaire. Now, questionnaire is also another type of library item, but for it to be assigned in the checklist, the questionnaire needs to be wrapped into a task, because we can only add forms and tasks to a checklist. So if we want to add a questionnaire to a checklist, we need to bundle that inside of a task first. Now, to the question, there aren't tasks. We can't assign a form to a task. It's already its own type of task. So there's a little bit of confusion there, but I hope that explains the difference between a task and a form. Did I answer all of that question, Carol?
Yeah, I did have an additional thought. So when it says form needs to be completed, which does not require any action outside of ApplicantStack, we do have a supporting document section where you can just upload a document for review. And a use case for that might be a handbook. So that does not require action documentation. It's just there for them to view. So that may be another tidbit that might be helpful.
Great, thank you for adding that.
Yeah. On the I-9, next question, are the options for the employees to add documents added? So that would be their driver's license, social security card, passport, and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, it may be possible. I'm not sure, since it's a federal form. If you want to modify that, you could prompt your employees to upload documents into the system, or you could scan. You may want to check with your HR department. Typically, those documents are kept separately. So you may want to check with your team on that. But if you want to modify the form, again, I'm not sure if that's advisable or not. You may be able to add a file type field, which would allow them to do that. And Brandon, if you want to maybe show that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you, Carol. I think I think from a function standpoint, you can add a file field to the I-9 if you wanted to modify that. But best practice is to just have that file upload be its own task. So if I go into the I-9 and navigate to the edit, there is an option here for file. So if I were to drag this over and put the file in here somewhere, then it would give a file option, and the candidate would click on it, and then they could upload their driver's license and attach it to this form. But again, as Carol said, best practice would be to make a separate task asking them to upload it so that they're held separately.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Next question. This is kind of in between recruit and onboard question. When there is an identical stage in both recruiting and onboarding, why can't we change, or why can't a change made in recruiting automatically change in onboard?
Okay, so I think that's talking about like candidate information. So the push is a one-time push. So if we, because they're two separate modules and they're purchased separately, and the way it was designed, if we put in a phone number in Recruit and put in all the candidates' information with that phone number, when they're pushed to onboarding, it creates a new record, a new onboarding record. And so whatever the information is at that time, and that slice of time, that's what the new record will show. If we go back and change something in Recruit, it's not going to push that new information over to onboarding. Likewise, it's a one-directional push. So if I change something in onboarding, like their phone number, it's not going to update their Recruit record. That is a great feature request, though. And if you want to submit a feature request, which we are always welcoming, especially this time of year, because we are developing our roadmap for next year and what our priorities are going to be to better our product. And so now would be a great time to put in a feature request. And you can do that by going to the question mark in the top right with the orange box, and you would ask a question. This takes you to the form to submit a ticket. And one of the options under category is feature request or idea. So you would just fill this out as completely as possible. Even a screenshot of the page that you're talking about can be helpful. And then just describe what you are trying to accomplish and how it would be used, including examples if possible. That can be really helpful. And again, we invite those feature requests. It's not a burden. It's something that we are always soliciting, but especially this time of year, it's a great time to put in a feature request. So thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you. Brandon, a handful more questions. We have 5 right now. Is there a way to print a checklist?
Okay, so if I were to navigate to the checklist section of my library and I click on the name here of the checklist that I have, I can print this page, this web page. But I think what you're asking is, can we print all of the PDFs that are associated with this checklist at once? And correct me if I'm wrong, please put in the comments there if I'm going down the wrong road. But no, you cannot print the blank forms. That is something that we as account managers can do from our end, but it's considered a super user function. So it's not an admin or a recruiter or hiring manager function to be able to print the blank forms. Of course, once forms are filled out, then there is a print function. So if I were to go to the candidate record, and I can see here, view all forms, these would be the completed forms, and I click on that, then it's going to open up the forms that have been completed, and it's going to stitch them together into one single PDF. If I wanted to print individual forms that have been completed, then I can just click over here and select that form. But again, if they haven't been completed yet, there's not a print option.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Brandon. Next question. Tried to send a form to myself so I could get a point of view of the receiver and walk through that in the future, in case there's questions that come up, there was an error saying you are not authorized to complete this form. This form must be completed by the hire. So it sounds like there was a test profile created. We wanted to do some testing. We assigned the form, and there was a message, you are not authorized. My main thought, or maybe that you'll have to create a hire record for yourself. And I'm thinking this may be a case of your user email within the system is the same as the quote unquote hire email. And maybe that's where the issue lies. So maybe try a personal email address, something of that sort, just to make sure that there's that differentiation there. Brandon, can you think of anything else?
No, I think you're exactly right. So if I were to navigate, so I'm signed in as a user, an ApplicantStack user, or imitating what a recruiter would be seeing. And I can, even though these are hire tasks, I can go in here and complete it, but it might not allow me to do that because it needs to be completed by the hire. And so, as Carol was saying, it's always a good thing to test that out, and you would do that by just entering yourself as a hire and use a unique email address so that there's no confusion, and then you can experience exactly what the candidate would be experiencing.
Fantastic, thank you. And if that's not the case, please let us know, and we can certainly look into that for you. Going back to the printing the checklist question, just wanted to print the list, not the documents. We'll make a feature request. So the only thing I can think there is if you go into the checklist and you hit Control P for print, we would have to view it and then print it. Control P. It doesn't look the best. It's not this cleaned up version here. But you can try that and save that as a PDF or print that out. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
Okay.
But that can be a feature request. Fantastic. Okay, does ApplicantStack have a process that allows recipients to sign a document in a specified order and update the original sender when each recipient signs the document?
Okay, great. So the answer is yes. I think you're asking about like chain of custody, so that you have one party that needs to fill out certain parts of the form, and then someone else needs to check it off and sign that as well. And so within the forms, that's one of the basic functions of forms. And so we're going to use the I-9 as an example again. If I edit this, we will see two places where we can set that designation. So first is the form details. You can see here the form type for this I-9 is higher than employer. So it's going to assign this form as a task to the hire first. And once they complete all of their pieces and submit it, then it will become an employer or a user task. And not until the hire has completed all their pieces will it be an employer or user task. In addition to setting this toggle here, we also need to assign at least one field to each of those parties. So there has to be at least one field that's a hire field and at least one field that's going to be an employer field. So for the I-9, most of these are, this top section, this is all going to be hire fields. And then when we get to section 2, this is where the employer is expected to identify the documents, see the original documents, and then enter the information of those documents. So this section here, these are all employer fields. And so you can see in the settings of each field, there's the form group, and this one is an employer designation. So if again, to repeat that, if I go up here, this is a hire designation here. I can edit that and change it, hire or employer, but we have to set at least one field for each and set this setting at the top for the form type for that to work. Now, maybe you're wondering if we can have additional chain of custody. So beyond just the two parties, we can't. There's only the two parties. So the hiring manager would be assigned as the user, and then the hire would be whoever the new employee is.
Fantastic, thank you, Brandon. We've got 2 follow-up questions to prior questions. Can you show that print process again, the checklist?
Sure.
printing that.
Yeah, so I went to the library and clicked on checklist, and I don't want to click the edit option. I just want to click on the title. So now that I'm viewing this web page, I just can either click Control P, which is going to bring up the print preview, or from within, I'm using Chrome here, I can click on the dots and go down to print, which is going to give me the same thing. So if you wanted to get this as a table of contents or something like that, this is the way you would do that. Okay.
Fantastic, thanks, Brandon. Going back to doing the testing, sending forms. It sounds like we did try the personal email, that's not working. So we'll take that one offline. We may need to look at that a little bit deeper and take a peek at that for you and maybe get support involved for that.
Okay.
So we'll be back in touch. 2 remaining questions, Brandon. Does the ApplicantStack process automatically send the original sender and all recipients a copy of the signed document?
Okay, so I think you're asking if it sends an email with the signed PDF attached, and it does not. We can configure ApplicantStack to send out reminders for people to complete the forms if it hasn't been completed yet. And as long as the candidate is in an active stage, they can always access the hiring portal and print the documents from there. So if I were to go to, let's go to a candidate who's completed some. Will Smith has completed part of his. So if I go to View Portal, I can click on the form that's been striked out, indicating that it's been completed, and I can print it from here. But it does not automatically send an email with that attached. Great question, and I think that would be a great feature. So I encourage you to put that in as a feature request.
Okay. Next question, does ApplicantStack have the option to upload a packet? For example, within a folder, there are multiple documents in it. They have to submit a packet / folder to applicants for them to complete. I believe that refers to a checklist. And then is there also an option that we will be marked in ApplicantStack if the applicant is done to some documents? And I believe that refers to the new hire profile, where you can see what's completed, what's not completed. So 2 more questions.
Yeah, so you can, so if you have a long PDF that is multiple forms stitched together, you can do it that way, but it's not best practice. It's best practice to have each each topic, each form in its own task, because if you have all those stitched together in one form, then one, the system could time out. They might not give the candidate enough time. And if they do that, then everything, that their work is lost. So they're gonna have to start over. And yeah, so just from a performance standpoint of the system, it's best to have those broken up into the individual forms so they can go through those systematically and finish them. What was the other half of the question, Carol?
2 more questions. Second part was how to create that quote unquote checklist or package.
Oh yeah, so again, the checklist, the package or envelope you want to call it, we would go to the checklist and we can create multiple checklists. I just have one in here as an example, but I could create multiple. So if I go to the edit shortcut, I can change this. There's 2 columns now. So the column on the right are the tasks or forms that have been assigned to the checklist that I'm editing. And the tasks and forms on the left column are other tasks and forms that are available in the library to add to my checklist. And so again, I can just click these and drag them over to add it. Or I could start from scratch by creating a new checklist. And you'll see now there's nothing in this one yet. So I would just drag the items I need to add like that.
Okay. We're going to shift gears over to Recruit just briefly. I don't know if you need to necessarily share your screen, Brandon, but sometimes can't move a candidate from new or completed to hired in the recruit module. Any idea why that is? Is there a workaround? And we did peek at your account beforehand, so thanks again. And you've got multiple workflows. And my best guess is there is a configuration change that needs to happen within one of those workflows. So if you could send an example into our support team, if you have a specific candidate, specific job that you're not seeing that, the one candidate I took a peek at did have it. So if you could send just an example to our support team, they can dig in for you and look and see if it's one workflow that's impacted, what that situation might be.
All right, thanks, Carol.
Okay, a couple more have come in. Can I create an applicant and send them forms to sign without attaching the applicant to a job posting?
I think they're asking if we can create a new hire in onboarding without them existing in recruit first or being attached to a job. Yes, you can. That is not a problem. So we would just navigate to onboarding, and there's an option at the top of the action menu here, add hire, and we can just add the hire. Looks like it's optional to give the job name, so that's not a required field. There's just a few required fields here, but we do need to assign them to a workflow and assign them to a stage to start in.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Next question. Can you change a new hire's email once they have been pushed from recruit to onboard? Currently, correspondence goes to their personal email, even though they are completing onboarding tasks, including training. So it sounds like maybe they want to switch from a personal to a work email at that point.
Okay, yes, and yes, that is a simple fix. You can just go in here and into the candidate record and click edit, and you'll see down here, where am I missing it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, the email's right here. I can change that email at any time. Now, it is important, however, that it's a unique email, that you're not assigning an email that someone else has used. For example, some organizations use generic emails for certain positions, like maintenance at acme.com. So maybe your existing maintenance worker worker's email had been changed to maintenance at acme.com, and now you have a new maintenance worker who is going to be using that same email. That would be problematic. So you want to make sure that it's a unique email. There's a workaround in that example. You would just go to the old maintenance worker's record and give it a garbage email address, and then you could use the actual email address for the new candidate.
Okay, oh, sorry, that's the question we just had. We've got quite a few coming through. Bear with me, I'm just catching up. Okay, yep, we covered that one. We do have a question about a trial. We'll take that one offline. I'll be sure to get that question over to Brandon. He's your account manager. And we have a follow-up question. Apologies, I did delete as we're answering, but so I did that, but I wanted to choose different papers than what was in the workflow, but they weren't available as a choice for attaching to an email to the applicant. Julie, if you could just, apologies, that first question, I don't have that, so I'm not quite sure what that relates to. If you could resubmit that. Next question, and Julie will come back to you. Once all onboarding forms are completed, can this system automatically change the status?
Carol, can you help with that one? I know we can't do it. Yeah, I need help with that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that can be automated. Maybe something you may want to take a peek in the hire record, and once everything is completed, you would change their stage manually. I don't believe there's a way to have that automatically happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Great feature request though, again.
Yes, our support team, if you want to put that in, that would be fantastic. Okay, so the question about choosing different papers than what was in the workflow, they weren't available as a choice for attaching to an email. That was the question about adding the applicant without the job. Thank you, Julie. Brandon, do we still have you?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused of what's being asked.
Okay, so we had the question about adding the applicant not tied to a job, so we added them manually. We did that, but we wanted to choose different papers than what was in the workflow, but they weren't available as a choice for attaching to an email to the applicant. So it sounds like the forms were not available.
Yeah, and that's my hang up. I guess I do understand what she's asking, but I don't know why the forms wouldn't show there. If I go to, so again, I'm manually working on Will Smith's hire record here. If I wanted to send an email, I would use that as an option from the action menu on the right, and then include forms down here, and every form should be available. Maybe only forms that are in the, I'd have to investigate this. I'm sorry, I can't give you an immediate answer. It's possible that only forms in the workflow that this candidate's assigned to are showing in this dropdown. So in that case, you might need to assign them to a different workflow. But I'm speculating here. I'd have to look at it a little deeper.
Yeah, we've got some clarification. Went into the library. They're in the library, but they're not available through the email selection. No workflow was assigned. Brandon, if it's okay, I'm gonna take a screenshot of these questions.
Okay.
And we can take a deeper dive and loop back with you, Julie. It sounds like this may be a one-off configuration that we need to look at, take a little bit closer look at for you.
Okay. Anything else?
I think we have everything. We took care of the questions that were submitted beforehand, and we pretty much have everything answered. I'm just double checking. Okay, yep, we are caught up.
All right, great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining. We will follow up on those couple of remaining questions, and we'll be back in touch. But just as a reminder, we do have those webinars upcoming. Those are on your homepage in the announcements section. There's a registration link there as well, and Brandon's showing that to you right now. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we'll be back in touch on this couple of items. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Everyone, take care.